Europe, once considered the cradle of civilization, is now in crisis. This is not simply our opinion, but what many scholars are saying. Our continent is indeed experiencing a profound cultural, political, and identity crisis. Some countries seem more affected than others, and this is what we will explore in this video. Today, we will look at some European countries that are facing a rapid decline on multiple levels: economic instability, political changes, population decline, crime, social unrest, and more. To make this video more balanced, we will report on the situation of some nations in both Eastern and Western Europe. We are aware that we cannot cover everything or speak about every country, so feel free to enrich this video by sharing your thoughts on this situation or on the situation in your own country in the comments. Welcome to this new Amazing Europe video. Number 1. Italy. Italy risks slowly disappearing. With a birth rate of just 6 children per 1,000 inhabitants, half the number of deaths, the country is aging rapidly, and young people continue to flee abroad in search of stable employment. Eurostat projections are alarming. If we consider only the Italian population, excluding immigrants, by 2000 there will be a 46.8% decrease. This demographic decline puts the pension system at risk. Italy already has the highest average age in Europe, at around 48 years, with 37.5 retirees per 100 working-age people. The government is increasingly struggling to guarantee pensions, and many politicians argue that immigration is essential to keep the system balanced. Amazing Europe does not take a position on these issues, but we are curious to read your opinions in the comments. Regarding immigrants, it is essential to distinguish between legal and illegal immigrants. Concerning the latter, it is estimated that there are about 500,000 illegal immigrants in Italy, with over 1 million migrants arriving over the past 10 years. In the same period, about 28,000 people have unfortunately died in the Mediterranean Sea. While some politicians propose relying on migrants to support pensions, others believe that the solution is to reduce taxes. Indeed, tax evasion in Italy is the highest in the European Union, and the tax burden, along with stagnant wages, pushes many young people to live with their parents until an average age of 30. Number 2. Bulgaria. Bulgaria is one of the European countries with the greatest economic disparity between rich and poor. The poorest 20% of the population earns 7.3 times less than the richest 20%. This figure becomes even more striking when considering the economic elite. The wealthiest 1% earn 55 times more than the poorest 50%. Despite some recent improvements, poverty remains a widespread issue. Average wages are low compared to the cost of living and rents, with an average salary under €1,000, and significantly lower figures for young people. As a result, nearly half of Bulgarians aged 25 to 34 still live with their parents, leaving the family home only around age 30. This reality drives many young people to seek better opportunities abroad. In 2019 alone, around 40,000 Bulgarians left the country, with very few returning. However, it is not only emigration that reduces Bulgaria's population, there is also an alarming mortality rate. With 14.3 deaths per 1,000 inhabitants, Bulgaria has one of the highest rates in Europe. About 82% of Bulgarians die from cardiovascular diseases and cancer, and for years Bulgarian doctors have stated that smoking and alcohol are the leading causes of mortality in this country. The situation is dire. According to Eurostat, Bulgaria is the only European Union country where life expectancy has declined in recent years. Between emigration and deaths outnumbering births, Bulgaria has lost 22.6% of its population in the past 30 years. Number 3. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom ranks among the European countries with the highest crime rates, particularly in England and Wales. This jurisdiction holds the 8th place in Europe for rape and drug-related crimes, 5th for vehicle theft, 3rd for home burglaries, and even 2nd for robberies. Today, the crime rate has reached its highest level since 2007. Particularly alarming is the situation in the West Midlands, where youth crime has doubled in recent years. In some Coventry neighborhoods, the crime rate exceeds the national average by 200%. Immigration continues to rise. While legal immigrants made up 9% of the population in 2004, by 2021 they accounted for 14.3%. Estimates of irregular immigrants vary between 594,000 and 1.2 million, with irregular crossings through the English Channel quadrupling in the last 5 years. Unfortunately, many of these migrants end up in conditions of modern slavery, including men exploited at work, and women and children who are victims of abuse, often without the majority of the British population even being aware. This situation occurs against a backdrop of significant inequalities. While the UK has a large number of millionaires, poverty is increasingly widespread, hitting the most vulnerable the hardest. In 2022, the incomes of the poorest 14 million people fell by 7.5%, while those of the wealthiest fifth of the population increased by 7.8%. According to experts, rising poverty is one of the main causes of the wave of depression in the country, which affects particularly the sick and the poor. Indeed, 8.9% of British people suffer from chronic depression, one of the highest rates in Europe. Number 4. Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has undoubtedly worsened the country's decline, but some of the causes were present long before. The conflict with Russia has led nearly 7 million people to flee, and among the remaining 37 million citizens, 17 million are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. The damage to infrastructure is devastating. More than 8,400 kilometers of roads, 50 kilometers of railway, and around 400 bridges have been destroyed, paralyzing transport and weighing heavily on the national economy. A third of Ukrainian businesses have ceased to exist, while 10% of homes are now uninhabitable. Between 2013 and 2023, the country's GDP declined by 6.2%. However, not all difficulties are war-related. Even before the conflict, Ukraine ranked among the European countries with the highest number of cases of modern slavery. Both Ukrainians and foreigners in the country are victims of exploitation, often in labor, and many women are lured by criminal networks with false job offers in the beauty sector, only to be trafficked abroad and forced into prostitution. Unfortunately, even minors are affected. On the corruption front, 2023 saw the resignation of several government officials and even scandals in the Supreme Court. The European Union itself has recognized that corruption in this country appears to be an insurmountable problem. Further worsening the situation in Ukraine is the physical and psychological health of its residents. Suicide is a concerning phenomenon, accounting for 1.7% of deaths in 2020. Additionally, Ukrainians have poor health, with cardiovascular disease and strokes alone causing 64% of deaths in the country. Number 5. Greece. Many of you will remember Greece's dramatic crisis in 2009, when the country's economy collapsed, losing a quarter of its GDP. To help the situation, the European Union intervened with the Troika, but the impact was severe. Unemployment and job insecurity skyrocketed. By 2013, a critical point was reached, with 27.6% of people aged 20 to 64 unemployed. Today, however, Greece is slowly recovering. While GDP dropped by 0.3% between 2013 and 2023, since 2020 it has grown by 26%. But the challenges are not over. Tourism, a vital sector that contributes 1/5 of GDP, employs a quarter of the workforce, and accounts for nearly half of exports, remains a point of vulnerability. If tourism were to decline, the country could fall back into crisis. Additionally, tourism does not seem to be benefiting the Greek population significantly. The mayor of Athens revealed that each visitor brings an average of just 40 cents to each Athenian, a minimal sum that does not offset the issues caused by over-tourism, which is changing the city's character. Residents of the historic center are being forced to move due to rising rents, and the same scenario is seen in iconic locations like Santorini, which hosted 3 million tourists in 2023 despite having only 15,500 residents. Although unemployment has fallen to 11%, it remains above pre-crisis levels, as it was 9.7% in 2009. Economic instability means that half of young Greeks still live with their parents and, on average, leave the family home at age 30.6. This also influences the age at which Greek women have their first child, which is now 31, one of the highest in Europe. Number 6. Belarus. One of the most serious issues in this country is certainly corruption. President Lukashenko has repeatedly reported various cases of corruption within society. However, he himself does not appear to be exempt. Alexander Lukashenko, in power in Belarus since 1994, has been re-elected for 6 terms, but his leadership has been repeatedly questioned. During the last elections, many opposition members were arrested, and allegations of electoral fraud triggered mass protests across Belarus. According to humanitarian organizations, these protests left an indelible mark, 5 deaths, hundreds of injuries, dozens of disappearances, and nearly 500 cases of torture. In response, the European Union imposed sanctions on Belarus, but the government in Minsk seems to be holding firm. Between 2020 and 2023, Belarus's GDP grew by 17%, but behind these positive numbers lies a difficult reality. Despite recent economic gains, the economy today is 5% weaker than it was a decade ago. The reasons are varied. For example, the recent Chinese economic downturn and the drop in oil prices severely impacted Belarus's petrochemical sector, a cornerstone of its economy. This economic hardship has also fueled disturbing phenomena such as modern slavery. In Belarus, 11.3 out of every 1,000 people are considered modern slaves, victims of human trafficking, often from Ukraine and Vietnam, exploited by organized crime, while the authorities turn a blind eye. To make matters worse, the health of Belarusians is poor, especially among men, who live on average 10 years less than women. Belarus has the highest rate of alcohol-related deaths in the world. Coronary heart disease alone accounts for nearly half of deaths in Belarus, a worrying figure that underscores the fragility of the country's healthcare system. Number 7. Germany. It may seem strange to find Germany on a list of countries in crisis, but it's true. Today, this nation is experiencing one of its most challenging periods in recent decades. Although the German economy, with its still robust GDP, seems to be holding up, the real difficulties emerge on the social front. German society appears increasingly divided, with immigration as one of the most sensitive issues. In 2019, 26% of residents had immigrant backgrounds, and the number of illegal immigrants in Germany is estimated at around 280,000. When including refugees, the total rises to over 2.5 million. For many Germans, this is problematic. A recent survey reveals that 44% believe illegal immigration is the country's main political challenge. The debate over the economic impact of immigrants is heated. While some argue that they hurt the economy, many experts emphasize that they are vital for filling labor shortages in a rapidly aging country. Germany also faces religious and cultural challenges. Today, 6.5% of the population is Muslim, but coexistence is not always easy. The Interior Minister stated, "Muslims in Germany experience exclusion and discrimination in their daily lives, even to the point of hate and violence." We'd like to ask our German community for their views on this. Political trends reflect the general unease. Traditional parties are faltering, while anti-establishment ones are gaining ground, fueled by popular discontent over high taxes and a political class seen as out of touch with real issues. Germany has some of the highest taxes in Europe, while also paying its politicians some of the highest salaries on the continent. If we add that Germany is one of the European nations with the most homeless people and one of the highest rates of chronic depression, it becomes clear that Germany is experiencing one of the most severe cultural, social, and identity crises in recent decades. Number 8. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Corruption is one of this country's biggest issues. According to Transparency International, Bosnia and Herzegovina ranks as the most corrupt European nation, at least according to its own citizens' perceptions. International investigations have shown that politicians across the spectrum, as well as law enforcement officers, security personnel, and prosecutors, have been working on behalf of organized crime groups. Organized crime is highly prevalent in this country and is responsible for significant human trafficking, often with the cooperation of corrupt border agents and politicians. These politicians certainly don't help Bosnia and Herzegovina's economic recovery. Unemployment is rampant. Though only 13% are officially registered as unemployed, 58% of adults are economically inactive. Even those with jobs struggle, as the average salary is below the cost of living and housing. The country is in a deadlock, and many believe that part of the problem lies in its internal division. The Dayton Agreement split the country into two entities, the Republika Srpska, with a Serbian majority, and the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, populated by Bosniaks and Croats. These entities are united by a weak central government, and this political fragmentation deeply affects the economy. The result is that many people are emigrating abroad. Another serious problem is the poor health of the population, worsened by an inadequate healthcare system. For example, this nation has a cancer survival rate of 40%, the second lowest in Europe. According to Eurostat, emigration, high mortality, and low birth rates will lead the country to lose nearly 50% of its population by 2000. Number 9. Portugal. Portugal is the European Union country with the highest number of emigrants. In the past 20 years, over 1.5 million citizens have left their homeland. Today, there are approximately 2.1 million Portuguese people living around the world. While many are leaving, others are arriving. Although Portugal is not currently among the European countries with the highest number of immigrants, Eurostat forecasts indicate that, in the future, it will be one of the nations where the local population will be most significantly replaced by new residents. But what drives so many Portuguese to leave? Primarily, it's economic instability. Young people find it difficult to secure stable employment, and those who stay often cannot afford to leave their parents' home until the age of 29. However, not everyone is struggling. In fact, Portugal ranks among the European countries with the greatest inequality between rich and poor, a gap that was exacerbated by the pandemic. Since 2014, the number of taxpayers with incomes above €750,000 or assets over €5 million has quintupled, and in 2021, this elite contributed €18 billion, roughly 40% of the state's budget. To boost the economy, the government has heavily invested in tourism. This sector has brought jobs and revenue but also some downsides. Cities like Lisbon and Porto have become increasingly dedicated to visitors, with many properties converted into tourist rentals and prices rising to unsustainable levels for Portuguese residents. As a result, these cities are emptying of locals, becoming open-air museums and residences for foreigners. Perhaps this is also why so many Portuguese suffer from depression. In fact, 12.2% of the population suffers from chronic depression, and Portugal has the second highest rate of antidepressant use in Europe. Before revealing the last country, if you found this video informative, please kindly give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to not miss our new videos. This would greatly help us in promoting our projects. Thank you very much. Number 10. Moldova. Moldova has the lowest life expectancy in Europe, especially for men, who live about 10 years less than the European average. The reasons are numerous and include habits like smoking, alcohol consumption, and an unhealthy diet. Indeed, 40% of Moldovan men smoke, and over 70% are overweight or obese. These factors contribute to one of the highest mortality rates in Europe. This health crisis is coupled with a high rate of emigration. Each year, about 150,000 Moldovans, mostly young people, leave the country in search of a better future, while around 100,000, primarily people over 50 with accumulated savings, return. In just 30 years, Moldova's population has decreased by 40%, and the outlook for the future is not encouraging. It's hard to blame Moldovans for choosing to leave their country, given that the average salary is just €560 a month. For many, making it to the end of the month is impossible, and the majority don't believe the situation will improve, partly due to corruption. In fact, 22% of public service users report having paid a bribe in the last 12 months. Moldovans say their politicians are also corrupt. Only 20% of Moldovans trust their leaders, who are often in league with organized crime. The situation is even more dramatic in Transnistria, a strip of land that declared independence in 1992 but is not recognized internationally, where drug trafficking and the Russian mafia intersect with local political interests. Now it's up to you. Share your thoughts on the situation in these countries and on other nations we didn't cover in this video. If this topic interests you, we recommend watching our video on the 10 European countries where the local population is expected to be most replaced by immigrants in the future. You can find it in the upper right corner. That's all for this video. See you next time.